Howdy there, folks. Welcome into tonight's video. Just want to spend a few minutes talking about Palantir stock, PLTR, and kind of my opinion on what's going on with this stock, when it will bottom, those sorts of things, specific prices, how long are we talking in regards to this, and those sorts of things. I hope you guys enjoy this. As always, all I ask in return is that you hit that subscribe button. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, make sure you do it. I know this channel, actually a lot of times we get a lot of views on this channel, but a lot of people just don't realize they're not even subscribed to it. You just get fed it in your YouTube feed or whatever. So make sure you subscribe to the channel, okay? So Palantir stock. This is one that's a very, very popular stock among retail investors, right? And a lot of folks are looking at this one and they see a company that they believe is a game changer, right? And kind of at the forefront of data and artificial intelligence and how companies, large corporations specifically right now, maybe all businesses longer term, but right now, how large companies and government organizations use data and use that data to make better decisions, whether it be for a government, right? Or whether it be for, a government agency of some kind, or whether it be for specifically a company, right? Think about you're a large corporation, you've got all these decisions you need to make, right? You can make those decisions just using your gut instinct and what your opinion is and based upon that, right? Or you can make decisions not just based upon that, but using all this data and, and basically having these systems tell you, hey, you should probably order this much inventory. Hey, it would make sense to do this with the business model or raise price here and those sorts of things, right? And so Palantir is a pretty amazing company doing some pretty amazing things, and they're at the forefront of some incredible technology. However, we gotta talk about a few things here. One is how many folks on Wall Street really understand this company. Remember, Palantir has been public for less than 2 years. So first off, how many people on Wall Street understand this company on a high level, right? I think that's something we have to keep in mind, right? Second thing you got to keep in mind, this company, I think a lot of retail investors got involved with it over this past year or so as it being an exciting stock, and especially during kind of the hype period when, it wasn't just Palantir that was pumping, it was a lot of stocks, right? Into late last year in 2020 and early into this year. A lot of excitement, and a lot of folks didn't even really know what the heck Palantir does. It was just a popular stock, another one of, a bunch of popular stocks out there, right? And a lot of folks got involved with the stock who probably don't even know what's going on here. So you have a lot of Wall Street's clueless around the stock on what they actually do and what makes them different and how sticky their business model is going to be long term, which I think is a big bullish catalyst. I think this business is going to be incredibly sticky long term. And you have a lot of retail investors who are almost all guaranteed to be down unless you happen to buy in the big spring dip. There was a huge dip in the stock around kind of like April, May-ish that, the stock tanked to like $17, $18, $19 a share, which some folks got involved in the stock then. Most people are not involved at those prices. Most people own this stock between $40 and $25 a share. That's the majority of funds out there, the majority of investors in general, that's where they're at. So they're down, and they're down substantially, right? And you got a company that's a little harder business model for a lot of folks to understand. Now, keep in mind, this is something interesting with Palantir stock here today. Look at that volume. 59 million plus shares traded today, average volume 46 million. I think that's interesting because right now we're in a week that is a week in which it's a holiday week, okay? So holiday weeks, especially Thanksgiving and Christmas week, those are weeks when essentially a lot of volume dries up. It's not as active, right? And so for a day like today in this given week to have that sort of volume is actually quite surprising. That just shows you, I think there's a lot of selling pressure for the stock. There's also a lot of tax loss harvesting that's going on in Palantir stock specifically. There's a lot of stocks out there. This is going on right now. We've been in a divergent market this year where there's certain stocks that have performed amazing. I think a lot of the base companies, right? Apple and Microsoft and even Tesla's done pretty dang good, right? Think about Amazon. A lot of like the simplest big cap companies, NVIDIA, have done amazing. And so people have some good profits they've likely taken in those stocks or, might be considering taking. And then you got a stock like this with Palantir where you're like, well, it's in a vicious downtrend. It's probably going to be at $17, $18, $19. That's what a lot of people think in another month or two. Why not sell off, write off those gains against other stocks, write off those losses against gains I have in other stocks, right? And so I was talking about actually in the private live stream in the private stock group earlier, we were talking about, tax loss harvesting, and I've taken low six figures in profits in the public account this year, meaning I booked those profits like I think 100 and maybe 10,000 or something like that, right? And in that account, I'm down $62,000 in Corsair. So it was like, well, I could write off that $62,000 against, let's say, the $110,000 in gains or whatever. And all of a sudden now my tax liability is exponentially smaller, essentially, I would have to the IRS. And then I could go ahead and buy Corsair in a month or 45 days from now or whatever, right? The wash sale rules for 30 days. So as long as it's after 30 days, I could buy it back. And let's be honest, a stock like that has been downtrending, not going anywhere. A lot of folks figure it's probably just going to continue to go down. It's probably going to be even lower another month from now. Shoot, let me go ahead and offset a bunch of my gains with this loss, and I'll just buy it back for probably even cheaper in the future. So you have that going on with Palantir as well, in my opinion, okay? And on top of that, this was a stock that did attract some traders that were probably hoping to swing this thing for the fences, and it just didn't swing to the fences, right? And so you kind of have a messy situation now. So with Palantir specifically, it's a company I think as of today is trading at like a $41 billion market cap. Yahoo Finance lags a little bit on terms of this page. The page had them at 41 billion or so. And you do have, from my understanding, quite a bit more share-based compensation coming over the next couple of years. So a lot of folks are thinking, well, there's going to be a lot more shares outstanding over the next couple of years, right? That's a factor that's definitely out there. And you do have this, okay? The price to sales ratio isn't cheap for Palantir, considering this stock's come down a lot, and we're still at 20-something for the stock, 28 maybe at today, right? And so that's still a big number. It's not a 40 like it was, but still, the price to sales ratio you should expect to pay for a company like a Palantir is going to be more than most companies, right? You should expect to pay anywhere between a 10 and a 20 price to sales ratio for this sort of business, right? Now, it's not a food store, right? A food store, you should expect to pay a price to sales ratio of under 1, right? Maybe 0.5, 0.3 or something like that. This is no food store. Palantir is a high growth, very sticky business model that should be incredibly profitable long term, right? But at the end of the day, even some of folks have limits on price to sales ratios they're willing to pay for Palantir. You're looking at a stock that's over 100 forward P, so obviously definitely up there. And so a lot of folks are just saying, I don't know if I really want to get involved with this stock, right? Now, in my opinion, Palantir's this is definitely one of the few companies that I can see growing into becoming a giant over time. One of those, 500 billion type market caps, or maybe even larger than that over time. I think this is really going to be an incredible company over the next decade, 2 decades. With that being said, especially at the pace they're innovating, with that being said, though, you can't deny the profitability metrics, and you can't deny the price to sales ratios, okay? And so that's what it comes down to a stock like this. So in my opinion, there's no question, like, this stock could easily trade down to $17, $18. Heck, it was just down there, 6 months ago or so. To see it down to $17, $18 is not out of the realm of possibility. Now, in my opinion, if I'm a super long-term investor, Palantir's, a decent value, let's just call it that, and a pretty incredible stock for the long term. The only reason I haven't started picking up shares of this one so far with this big dip is simply because there's a lot of other stocks that are down huge. Like if you're in any of the stocks that are devastated this year, the stocks are getting more devastated. There's massive tax loss harvesting going on out there, in my opinion. I'm talking about massive because you're seeing a lot of these stocks that are already down 50, 60, 70% go down even more and just get to some pricing like it's really this stock's trading at that. So a lot of my money's going toward that. If all these other stocks were moving up, believe me, I would be buying Palantir, and I still might buy Palantir very soon. So this is one of those stocks that actually really has me intrigued as a long-term investor, and I think is a good potential candidate, but there's no question like this one could easily go down more as more folks give up on the chance of short-term profits happening here, and the more folks that consider tax loss harvesting. And remember, in any of these stocks, the more they go down, the more folks consider, especially in late November and early December, let me go ahead, take my loss in the stock, write it off against gains. Let me take my loss, write it off against gains. So if all you have is losses, respect. But for a lot of folks in the market, they have gains and losses, right? And so this is one of those opportunities that if all of a sudden it goes down 19, 18, and you bought at 28, all of a sudden you're like, is the stock really going to move in the next month? A lot of folks are like, no, it's probably not. If anything, it's going to move lower. There's no earnings coming out right now. So let me just go ahead, write off those gains. And so you kind of get this compounding effect where you get more and more selling pressure. And of course, there's always folks out there to buy stocks, right? But the issue is if you just have an immense amount of selling pressure, those asks just keep going down and down and down and down, right? And then what folks are willing to pay for it, the bids just keep going down and down and down as well, because people are like, well, it's just viciously down anyways. Palantir, I could pick it up for 17, next week. Why do I need to pay 20.65 now? So you get this just into a vicious cycle. So this is where you kind of have to separate the short term, what's going on in the blah, 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 from the long-term story in a stock like Palantir. So anyways, guys, that's my 2 cents around this one. I think it could very easily go to $17, $18 again. But at the same time, as a long-term investor, it looks like I think it's the most interesting stock in the, let's just call it SaaS, let's call it B2B, whatever you want to call it. In any of that category, this is the most interesting stock in that entire space, in my personal opinion. Bar none. I don't know one stock more exciting than this particular stock if you're going to consider any of those sorts of business models over the next decade. So no, needless to say, it's going to be an interesting ride to kind of see where this one goes. But there's no doubt, like short term, it could go down more. It's just the long term opportunity is pretty extraordinary there. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. As always, let me know if you're invested in Palantir. If you're looking at Palantir, what price you're looking at. Love to hear from you guys as always. Massive Black Friday sale coming for the private stock group. We haven't done one of these since literally last year. If you want me to email you or text you the deal as soon as it drops, check out pinned comment down there. Much love as always, and have a great day.